I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, let's go ahead and do roll call.
Oh, I'm doing the vote.
Oh, you can, or I can do if need.
Let me go get my list if you want me to do it.
Eliana, here's the list.
Thank you. All right, roll call for the record. Lenny Baker,
Here,
Dan Marcy, Scott Smiley,
Here.
Chris, how do you say your last name?
Point.
A coin,
here,
and that's it. We've got a quorum. You may proceed.
okay, approve of the agenda. We have our minutes here. Motion. We make motion. Okay, we have a second. Second,
Second.
Hold on, second is gonna have to be Scott.
okay. So do we have our second or you?
Yes, he did. Second.
Okay. Old business. We discussed,
You
Is it-
approval minutes.
uh,
Did you do the minutes?
yeah.
All in favor?
Oh, okay, no, we need to approve the agenda.
Right.
Okay, the minutes from April 7th. I have them here. I went through and I signed off on them. They look like everything is right for what we did. You have a copy?
I never got a copy of them. You can hand that to me. I could look at it real quick. That's, I tried looking online and did not see it there, so.
Well, wouldn't it need to be approved before it's sent out? I mean,
The minutes?
Yeah, they send out the draft, but the final is sent online once approved.
Yeah, you need to draft for today to approve it.
I thought I'd seen it in the.
Yeah, I thought it was in the.
It's not released to the public until it's been approved.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Okay, we have a motion. I'll second.
You can't second.
Can't.
The chairman only votes in the event of a tie.
Anytime.
So who's online?
Scott's online.
Got Scott.
Scott, okay.
Do you want to make a second motion, Scott?
Yes, I'll second.
Okay, so that'll approve our minutes for April
Well, you
7th.
need to take a vote next.
Yep.
So there's a motion and then a second, and then there has to be a vote.
Okay. All in favor of approving them?
Aye.
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Okay, approved. Okay, now we can move on to old business.
Right.
We had the discussion on establishing a charter. I think, Elena, you did send out 2 or 3 different
I sent
copies of
samples.
different charters
Correct.
that we were all gonna review and kind of see if we can find something that comes closest to what we're gonna be doing and what we need. And, I think we need to probably get that on an agenda here in the next meeting to where we can get that charter taken care of. So, we can't really do that until we go through and see what our schedule's gonna be like for when the meetings are. And then we could attach that, but we can attach that later.
Mhm.
Okay, so any other old business? Chuck, you have anything?
No.
Or Kurt? Okay, new business. Okay, we have Julie here today and she's gonna be kind of putting us up to speed on the process of grant writing, kind of how they're issued. We feel that it'd be important for our committee to see the process of all of that, just so it would help us decide maybe what comes up on our priority list, what process would be if we're looking at something that's gonna take a year to get a grant. We need to really look at something that would be quicker, or we just need to understand.
Quicker than a year.
And she can just pop them out, she said. She told me earlier that you just asked for mine and she did. Thank you, Julie.
You're welcome.
Gentlemen, we're gonna go through a really quick slideshow that we get from the NMDOT. I live 3 to 5 years in the future. It's gonna depend on. Oh, there we go. So it depends on the program. So the state has several programs that they offer for funding. The first one is the co-op. And this is the limited funds. This is from 50,000 to 300,000. I've never seen anyone get 300,000. But we usually use the co-op fund. We'll use it for design phase for projects. We use it for to supplement road material costs. So you get a one shot at this, and usually I usually put in for, like this past year, I put in for $80,000 to go as a capital stack for Upper Bill Burgess. That's one of our projects. On the next page, we have the Municipal Arterial Program, the MAP program. Usually this is used for funding for school bus routes. I've applied for this for the north lane of Camino Grande, which is the road that goes to the transfer station and to the high school. The north lane is broken down and deteriorating because the loads from the transfer station, you got 83,000 pounds going on there. And it's not really compacted well when they first did that. So we're putting in funds to try to get money for that north lane of Camino Grande. And all of these have very similar funding timelines. Like you'll get a notice of a funding, notice of opportunity, usually in January. And the applications are due in March 15th. The big money one is the Transportation Project Fund, the TPF fund. This is where you usually get your larger dollar amounts for the bigger road projects. We've had TPF funding for Country Club St. Andrews Way, San Mateo, Country Club resurfacing, CS Valley Ranch Road project. We've put in for TPF funding for Angel Fire Road, North Angel Fire Road. This has been for the past 5 years. I've put in for funding for this road. When I first did this 5 years ago, I put in for 2.1 million. That was to do the whole road. Now, because costs have gone up exponentially, now we have to phase that project. So now I have for Upper Bill Burgess Road from that drop inlet down to Vale, I believe, 2.3 million. There's also an issue with the storm drain that has to be coated. That'll probably come from the village because I don't think it's going to cover the TPF project. TPF funds will do new virgin install of water sewer lines. Since you're tearing up the road at the same time, they will help supplement that water sewer line installation. We did that at Country Club St. Andrews Way. We put in new water lines and sewer lines up there. So if it's a virgin install, they will help supplement that cost of that project. The Upper Bill Burgess project we're doing, and we're going to phase down. So phase one will be Upper East Bill Burgess, and then Central, and then the Western Bill Burgess will be the final part. These projects usually they'll do a notice of funding in January. You'll submit your application in March, middle March usually. And I may not know until the end of May, first week, 2 weeks of June. So that goes, so FY27, that's what that application is due. So I'll get a notice of funding opportunity in January for the following fiscal year. So it's not gonna happen this year. When we get that funding, it's gonna hit July 1, and that's when we'll go out for an RFP to get contractor and go through if they give us funding. We did not get TPF funding last year.
So you'd have the approval by then.
Yes, we'll get a letter of award, usually they'll tell me. And then we also put in, for the TPF funding, I am putting in a match waiver. Now, a match waiver, because you have a grant match, so you'll get a certain amount, say they're gonna award $2 million. You'll have 25% that the village is responsible for matching. The match waiver means that the state's covering the whole enchilada for that project. Okay, which is great. So I'm putting in for match waiver funds because the last 2 winters have been terrible and we've had like very limited GRTs. So what'll happen is the state will say, okay, yeah, we're gonna go through your budget and yes, we see a need here. So they will go ahead and do that. We have received match funding and even shortfall funding for North Vale Avenue, and there was what was the other one? Country Club St. Andrews Way. We received the match and we received shortfall funding because they were just flush with oil money. And this was 2022 that we received this big enchilada. Now, these past couple projects, I have not received match waiver funds. And like I said, last year, we did not receive a TPF funded project at all. But the timeline usually is, this isn't a quick process. Nothing in government's fast. It takes 3 days, 3 months, or 3 years. This is gonna be in that 3-year phase.
Just real quick, Julie, to back up, you said if we found out in July that we'd received PPF funding, give them a description of the timeline for the RFP contract negotiations,
Okay,
like literally how the amount of time involved that after we're approved.
from awarding a contractor.
Yeah, and before we stick
Okay.
implements in the ground.
Because state funding require, this isn't just us going out and paving like South Angel Fire Road. Because it's a state funded project, you have to have all your engineering in place, which adds cost, of course, to your project. Once you get a notice of award, they say, okay, we're gonna grant you these funds. You go to council, say, is it okay to accept these awards? There will be resolution, yes, go ahead and do this project, proceed. We'll get a notice to proceed. Then we have our engineer do an RFP, request for proposals, because we want to find a qualified contractor who's going to be doing this work, the groundwork and asphalt, concrete work. Usually it's the past several have been through GM Emulsions. One, they have a statewide price agreement, which kind of cuts down on the RFP, means we don't have to go out for RFP if you have a statewide price agreement, because the state has already done that process for us. So either way, if we're gonna do an RFP or if we go through statewide price agreement, it still takes some time. To go through RFP, you're looking at, it by law, it has to be advertised for 10 days. Our newspaper is weekly, so it's 14 days. And then you give them amount of time to put their proposal together. So it could be 6 weeks after notice of award, but until you have a contractor sign on dotted line ready to proceed. Now, because we have a short construction period, so you're looking at July, middle of August. Do we hit depending on the scope of the project, do they have enough time to mobilize and come up here? Sometimes we may not start the project until that following spring. Because otherwise we'll have to play for mobilization again, right? Yeah, so a lot of times we'll get the contractor lined up, got them locked in. Okay, you're gonna start on this date. Usually it's like May, because you can still get snow and freezing temperatures and stuff. So usually it's around May when they'll kick off their construction project. Any questions?
Well, just to elaborate, what this means is if it does turn into a scenario where work starts the following spring, most of these projects need to be completed within 2 years. And now keep in mind that we lose, if somebody doesn't mob in the fall to start, we'll lose September, October, November, December. And then may not be able to start up till May with temperatures. So we have essentially 9 months there that are burned up out of that 2 years before we even get started. Okay, so you almost have to look at these projects as they need to be achievable in one summer and fall building season. Where the hope is that they come in spring of 27, they can get all the work done before winter hits. Because if they don't, what's left? May and June. Which that's kind of tight. So essentially out of, they give you 2 years to do the project, but you could potentially have 7 or 8 months that you're actually able to work on the project. I didn't distract
No,
you.
no, thank you. When we
I have
turn in
a
an
que-
application, we get estimated cost, I'm sorry?
No, I had a question for you on a very generality speaking. How much of the funding for roadway improvements it comes from grants, and how much of it comes from city budget? Does the city budget contribute significantly, or just a very small part of the roadway improvement money the village uses?
If I'm going for state funding, the village budget covers very little. A lot of times we'll do our engineering costs out of the Go Bond Streets section. We'll cover engineering costs. We sometimes use the co-op to supplement, engineering costs. Once you have engineering costs done, then you look very attractive to the funders. The village does have a very small budget, well, probably going forward this year, for that they do in-house roads. Where when the administration first came in, there was a surplus, and we got Arapahoe Road done, I think, South Angel Fire Road, I believe, done.
We did a Arapahoe and Jackson Hole out of budget, and did South Angel Fire Road and Aspen Street with Go Bond dollars.
Yeah, so
Does the village commit an amount every year for road improvements in addition to the grant money you go after?
It varies. For fiscal year 24-25, we got $2.4 million for road materials. It was half that the following year.
That
Which is the
hurts.
fiscal year we're still in. And approximately 600,000 of that will not be spent by the end of the fiscal year. And we're currently in this year's budget cycle.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so once again, on the application process for the TPF funds, once again, we submit a cost and quantities. We give them a description of the road we're working on, public justification, either safety reasons, ADA compliance, the road is deteriorating, it's a high traffic area, etc. I do get a resolution from the council. This one? Okay, there you go. So we get an estimated cost and quantities, a letter of support agreement. We do get letters of support from our NERPO, Northeast Regional Transportation Planning Organization. Coming next week, May 13th, I'll be doing a presentation to get funding for our Upper Bill Burgess. Every municipality that's trying to go for state funds, each region has their own transportation planning organization, and they will do presentations trying to get funding for their projects. Once again, I've tried for North Angel Fire Road for a number of years. When it got really, really bad, the village did some asphalt work right there by Inbank. But now we're still trying to get the sidewalks done because they're not ADA compliant. They're crushed, they're being destroyed. We're trying to work on the upper section to get that high traffic area done first. And if we need to, we can have detours around the next phase 2, because that'll be another area in front of Cotham's Ski Shop and Makuna Grill that asphalt needs to be redone also. Eligibility. Municipalities are eligible for the MAP and the co-op funds. Schools have different funding sources. The counties have different funding sources. Now, the state does have funding programs. They don't always fund their programs, depending on whatever they decide to put in the most funds. Usually the most funds are put into the TPF program because those are high dollar construction programs. Resolution summary, like I said, the entity is required to cover 25% of project costs. That's why we put in a match waiver, because this $2.3 million project, we'd like to get a match waiver since the last two winters have been very below average in the GRTs, and we're really expecting to take a pretty big hit there. So we're gonna try to get, once they ask for match waivers, we'll do a match waiver request, and I'll submit a resolution to council for that match waiver request. So after the TPF project, I have a timeline here of how that funding goes through many hoops. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes months and months. Like I said, May 13th rather, I'm doing my presentation at Highlands University for our Northeast Regional Transportation Organization. Then they will get that and make a recommendation to their chair and secretary, and the bigwigs will hash it out and figure out who's gonna get what money where. And then I'll get a notice saying, okay, you're gonna get funding probably the end of June, July, somewhere in there. They usually let us know. And I can do a disbursement request in August. The last one I have in here is the recreational trails program. We have received money in the past for trails. It's been seldom, but if the village has the right of way, we can get funding for trails. And that was the main point, is having the village having the right of way. And do you gentlemen have any questions for me as far as the timeline for the state and their funding programs?
Not on the tongue. I just want to make sure that I understand correctly when you're trying to get the Latin, I forget the phrase you use, but we're trying to get them to cover all of it, basically.
The match waiver?
The match waiver, sorry, I'm terrible with names of things. So I guess I'm trying to understand, if we put in for, I thought you said 2.1 million, is that saying that they would only cover 1.6 roughly, and then we're trying to get them to match the other 5, or is the project actually 2.5 million?
If the project costs 2.1 million, we're gonna come up with 25% of that, unless we get a waiver. If we get a waiver, then the whole thing's covered.
Okay.
Now, what I need from the legislative body, the committee, is what's your next project? You gotta think 3 to 5 years down the road, because this is how much time it's taken me to get funding for these. So there was talk of Monte Verde Lake Drive that comes off of 434, is that the road?
It's, it's Lakeview Park Drive,
Yeah.
the road around the lake.
Okay, so that, if that was to be a priority, you're gonna prioritize, what do we wanna go after 3 years from now? Cause it's gonna take Julie 3 years to get this money. Because I have to line up engineering, cause that's gonna be the next phase, the next cost for whatever road you select. Whatever, that's gonna be the next phase I have to go. So I'm, from you in the governing body, I'm gonna say, okay, this is our next priority. We wanna go after this road, and we wanna pave 500 yards of it, okay? $2.something million. And then the next one, okay, what's the next thing? We wanna do St. Andrews Champions Terrace, wanna continue that, the sewer line and water line up there. So I just go after funding. I don't pick the projects. Okay, that's above my pay grade, that's higher up. So it's the committee, it's the legislative body, it's the public works director, it's the administrator. I get marching orders from y'all. I go after funding. I don't pick the projects. Okay, so when you give me a project to go after, I'm going after it. So like I've been going after Bill Burgess North Angel Fire Road for 5 years, trying to get this money for this. Because once again, the costs escalate as time goes on. Like once again, 5 years ago, I could have got the whole road done for 2.1 million. Now I have a section that's going to be 2.1 million, and it'll go on as we go.
Is there funding out there that is very specific that it's done? You only move forward with trying to get it because we think we need something done. Like we can go get funding for any road, try and get funding for any road project. Is there funding out there that is much more specific on things that sometimes we'll do a project that may not be the first priority because the funding is available for it, but not for others?
So you have the co-op, which is a smaller amount, and you can go after. It's going to cover certain parameters. Like you can get it for material, you can use it for material, you can use it for help with design, or you can use it towards your construction of your project, okay? MAP funding has certain parameters, so usually it's school bus routes, and it's going off of a state highway. It connects off of the state highway. So you have certain parameters that your projects, your programs are allowed to do. Your TPF, like I said, is your largest construction funding source available for roads, as far as state grants offered, okay? So once again, you line up which project you see 3 to 5 years down the road, we want to go after this one next. And that'll be a priority, then we'll get engineering done. Now, engineering, we've usually been very fortunate that we've covered it with GO bond funds. So that way we're not taking engineering out of those the DOT grant funds. So we can use the DOT grant funds for construction. We can use the DOT grant funds for material. We can use the DOT grant funds if we have to for engineering, but engineering takes a big bite out of your dollars. Okay, it just does. That's, I should have been an engineer if I could.
And that go bond is quicker money.
The GO bond is money that, general obligation bond money that the village has voted on, repeatedly so right now we have a 2023 GO bond still active and a 2025 GO bond still active. If the village chooses to, proceed with another bond, it would be FY27 bond. And then they decide how much to sell these bonds for. So you could have $1 million in water and $1 million in streets. We've had $800,000 in water and $800,000 in streets. What depends on your bond capacity, debt capacity, or to go forward on those that bond.
To maybe further answer your question about if there ever is occasion or grant opportunities out there that nobody's taking advantage of. We actually benefited from one such scenario last year in regards to workforce housing. They had $2.9 million funded that they were going to put out, and we were the only ones that applied for it. This year, they have $26 million allocated for it, and there's a lot of applicants. So they put it in a pool and we're doing an application process. Hope to find out in July if we get the next round of fundings. But in regards to like roads and infrastructure, there's not much out there that people are not trying to take full advantage of.
Yeah, the legislative session could allocate 300 million to roads, and you could have 2.3 billion in requests. That's just the nature of the beast. I'm very positive. I think I've spoken with our District 4 Representative, John Herrera. I said, I need 2.1 million for this project. He's like, okay, so if you keep a dialogue, and they nominated us last year for approval of our project, but the higher ups, once you get to the cabinet level and some of these other guys, they're, oh, Angel Fire got all these projects, 4 years in a row. And it's like, just what happens. It's, our turn. But I'm very hopeful that we should get the 2.1 for Upper Bill Burgess.
So we kind of need to help set long-term priorities for what it is.
I would appreciate, yeah.
Right, so
So
that
I know
you what to, and it may or may not come through, although we're gonna do everything we can to try and get it.
So I foresee like your committee making a list of priority lists of roads you would like to see improved, upgraded, paved maybe, and making a recommendation to council. And then council would decide, okay, yes, we could go through for this road, whatever. And then that sort of gives me our marching orders. Okay, so I know I have to go for design funds for this, so I can get our engineer task order, get them worked on design. And that's how we process.
How does that overplay or go with, I think when last time you were telling us, some of the roads need sewage work done, where some of the septics are going out and we think we've got to start running the city sewage to there and things. Does that work hand in hand with this, or because I'm sitting here, we're trying to rank the projects, and if there's multiple things that need to be done, I hate to say it, but I'm a numbers guy and I want a scorecard together, a model telling me, taking all of these factors into account, this is the one that makes sense
Mhm.
with what's going in versus just going and saying, well, this road's bad, let's get it done. And then a year later, we have to go do something for the sewage on that same road. And it was a waste of time and money, basically, getting the first part of it.
Yes, I obviously want to strategize, knowing that before we put the pavement down, the infrastructure needs to be brought up to snuff. Of all of the most recent paving projects in Angel Fire for the last 5 years, I'll say, every single one of them has a fresh cut from a faulty electric line, and we've had that discussion with Mr. Kaiser as well. And when we parted just at the end of our last meeting, we quickly touched on the fact that in prioritizing these projects, we need to take into consideration what's most achievable. Okay, and yeah, that's the reality of it. I will say that one of the biggest struggles is identifying those priorities. Because I guarantee you, between this committee, between council, between administrators, maybe, but between me, it's gonna be tough to get a matching opinion from everybody first go around. And, good indicator of this is what's happened with the ICIP in the last 2.5 years. We've seen it significantly change. Now, understanding the ICIP is where we prioritize projects to seek funding, and it's not just roads. It's fire trucks, it's radio towers,
Event
it's
centers.
everything. And obviously, like this winter, if we were gonna sit down and talk about ICIP, we probably wouldn't be discussing a bunch of brand new snow removal equipment. Okay? We're definitely talking about it. People would be talking about firefighting equipment. You know what I'm saying? So beyond this and again, this committee is roads and infrastructure. We have, and Julie will be able to give us a brief little update on Monte Verde Lake subdivision, where we're seeking funding right now to properly size all the water lines and install fire hydrants. There are water and sewer projects that stand alone and are separate from road projects.
But it does impact it. So that's kind of one of the things that I'm thinking about, because if those water lines we're gonna have to replace because they're too small or under the
Yeah.
roads, you don't want to do the roads and then go back and do that. So you have to, even though it's maybe a separate project and a separate thing, you don't want to rate going and redoing the roads, not that they're paved there anyway, down on the Verde Lake or.
Is that easement over there big enough to where you could actually run along the side?
Some right of ways are, some right of ways aren't. We discussed Spyglass Road, for instance,
Right.
very narrow right of way. And that road, it's gonna require guardrail in places. And it has some positives to it. There is gravity sewer installed and each lot is served. But it also has a 4-inch water line. So sewer's there, but water would need to be done, along with the water, the power as well. And really anywhere that we're going to do full pavement with curb gutter, everything, would obviously want the infrastructure put in. Now, there are a few places where there's enough room in the right of way that it could be put in after the fact. It would be a task. It's ideal to do it before paving. But yeah, I don't want to ramble on too much, but
And there's not a way to do it at the same time, even though they're separate projects, because you're working in the same
well, they
area.
would in a sense be done at the same time. But obviously you would go in and do all the utility work and then do the
Yeah.
paving after that. But they could be together, much like what Julie mentioned on Upper Bill Burgess Boulevard. There's a component to the storm drain, which is the utility as well. That was assessed and it needs to be replaced. So that, or we may have an option of lining it, which is less disruptive, less intrusive. But yeah, and most every place is different as far as what's going to be required there for utilities.
But that all has to
Well,
come together before it gets close to that proposal.
Go ahead, Mr. Smiley.
Yeah, but when you were talking about, the prioritization and the different entities that have the approval process, my feeling was that you wanted this committee to create a unemotional priority sequence or a process so that it was based on facts and not based on personal preferences. And that's what I thought you wanted to get out of this committee. Now, where the politics take it after that is unseen. But that's kind of what I was expecting, that we wanted to be unemotional in our recommendations for what the next projects were 3 to 5 years out.
Yeah.
And so that goes back to creating that, doing the things we've talked about, which was some of that assessment, some of that prioritization, the category of road, the most significance of the road, that we can spend the money in places where we get the most people benefited from the improvements, and not we just go down some residential street to get somebody that had pull to have a paved road by their house. So, I keep thinking that we need to help the director by creating the framework of a factual based decision process to prioritize what roads need to be need to be improved. And that would make it very obvious of where we need to focus things. And then we need to obviously focus the water and wastewater on those same places so that they get done and have the money for themselves at the same timing.
I think, one of the first things that if you're going to come up with any kind of system to evaluate and prioritize, I think you need to identify what constitutes making a road a priority. When in previous attempts to have this infrastructure committee, reasons that I heard that were number one reasons on how to prioritize these roads were, and I'm talking about just roads at this point, there was discussion of number of full-time residents that live on the road. If full-time residents live on the road, I will say that every single road that we have has full-time residents living on it. There was, I think, I will say that my biggest priority on roads and what needs to be taken care of first, it's the same whether we're repairing roads, rebuilding roads, or doing snow removal on roads, is safety.
Right. Number one is safety.
It can most be simply explained in the scenario of snow removal. If I try to put the snow plan together based on which residents live here, which one needs to get work from here, if, our scenario, it seems to work good, is we go out and take care of the steepest, most dangerous spots, get a main roads cleared to the tops on both sides. And it's safety based.
Right.
I think, but I do feel in talking about rebuilding roads, safety is not always the first part of the discussion. It's more of what it serves. And true number of houses to be served is a big factor. Number of rental houses that might be in the area is a big factor. All are big factors, but in the end, it all goes back to safety should be number one. And we look at what is our most unsafe road. Again, probably prematurely putting my opinion out here. I'm really trying to motivate y'all to take the steps to develop this evaluation and prioritization process, and so we can get started on it.
Is the data out there? Is data out there somewhere we can use for that? I mean, like, is there any place where I could go see a list of every road that we have and kind of what the current status of it is, and as well as what the water lines underneath it are? Because I'm a person that if I could take and put that in a spreadsheet, I'd almost want to go put a ranking system together to look at all of the factors in it. And it gives us a starting point. Obviously, there's going to be discussion on stuff, but just looking at a map and then trying to go, oh, this one needs to be done. there's roads coming up I've never heard of that I couldn't tell you whether they need to be done or not. Things need to be done on them or whether we should recommend that they be done. So I guess is there data somewhere that we could use as a basis for making the plan besides a map?
Well, maps is what we have to compile that data. I mean, as far as areas that need water lines, we have the mapping that shows the 46 plus miles of undersized lines we have out there. Okay, that's,
But then we need to kind of overlay that with kind of what's the road structure, the safety factor of it as well, kind of try and take all of that into account in one place, I guess, rather than
Yeah.
I've got it over here. Yeah,
I put together a list and I forgot who I sent it to of what I thought based on our previous meetings of these criteria that need to be then ranked, which is just like you said, putting it into a spreadsheet where each of these elements can be then ranked, and the highest rankings are the ones that need to be considered first for updating and repair. And part of that starts with the categorization of the street. You know, does it help the most people, which is what we were just saying, you know, the number of houses? Does it help the most people and we get the most impact to the most people out of the money that is spent? And so, you know, there's a map that Santos sent out that is a arterial roadway map for the village. And, you know, it is produced, but I don't know that I fully agree with the extent of arterial and collector in it, but it does divide up roads into arterial and collector. And to me, you know, arterials were higher priority than a collector, but once the arterials are done, then we got to do collectors. And once the collectors are done, then we start on residential streets. But that, you know, that can be all like factually based and just like put together on a spreadsheet based upon the ranking of the streets we're looking at. And water and wastewater obviously fills in part of that. Lenny, did I send that list to you, or am I making up did I not get it sent out to anybody?
Which that's done?
did he send a list to you?
Hmm?
Did he send a list to you?
No.
Okay, then I will send it out to the group when we're done with this phone call of there's an outline of maybe how we can start this categorization process to help the director have the the basis for making decisions for priority of what roads are being needed to be done. And on that list, I'll tell you the first item on the list is safety, and the second one is the category of the road, and we go on down the whole list of things that we've been discussing for the last 3 or 4 meetings is what I try to include in there. I'll send that out.
Alana, didn't you send us an access to get online to go to see some of these maps?
No,
Okay,
that was not me.
because I know we had discussed that to where you could possibly do that to where we could get access to some of those maps.
I think that was Santos talked about that.
Yeah, it was Santos that was talking about it,
Okay.
but no, I never seen anything back because I was thinking, well, sooner or later, we're gonna be able to just go online and see a lot of these establishments that are in the system.
He's raising his hand, Santos.
Yeah.
Mr.
Okay,
Chairman,
Santos.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we've requested from UNM that prepared our GIS maps for a public user ID so that you can look on it. They've integrated that to our updates where we've also asked, we have a parcel of every lot in the village, but it doesn't have a lot number or a subdivision. And they just received that maybe 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago from Colfax County. So they've been integrating all those requests, but that's also on our ask so that you could just do a public online look and see some of these things. So we're still working on that.
But Santos, you did send out an arterial map to our group, I thought.
I did. Yes, I did. That was, it's just a point that I think the last time that map was adopted was like 2006 maybe, and it wasn't amended until maybe 2 years ago.
And so is that something the committee should be working on and making recommendations on how that is edited and send it back up through the council to make an approval?
Yeah, I think this conversation you're having about design guidelines and criteria to select roads for improvements, I would also hope that you include this thoroughfare map that is, as you go through these criteria of what should be upgraded or maintained differently, how does that impact this thoroughfare map? So that those amendments can be kind of dovetailed together, absolutely. And I think this conversation you're having of creating a criteria, so it's not arbitrary. Well, I want that road, I want this road, I want that, but there's actually workable criteria, whether it's 5 elements, 6 elements, whatever it is. And I think that's part of the other conversation was trying to get committee members into the field with a set of criteria to help identify and assess the inventory that we have to really cultivate this conversation in the right direction. I think all of that really is bundled together. I mean, I think Kurt wants to be able to say, as you go for funding, as you heard Julie say, you know, these roads have been identified because these are the criteria we found that leads to the improvements and the cost being X, which leads to the project timeline being X plus 5, whatever it is. I think all this comes together and it shouldn't be just one off. And, you know, you just talk about this part of roads and that part of roads. I think you guys are trying to keep it all and manage together as it should be.
Now, a lot of there is an established criteria in Title VII that distinguishes between local collector and arterial roads that could be worth review to see if the criteria we have within Title VII is sufficient. Because I have had some discussions of roads that are classified as collectors that some people view as an arterial.
And vice versa, the map that Santos sent out from previous has some roads on it that are labeled as arterials. And, you know, to me, in the long run, an arterial is a road that got you from place to place. And that may not be a good enough definition for Angel Fire. And maybe the definition for Angel Fire is what are the roads that help the preponderance of the people in Angel Fire? And so if you've got a road that's on one side of the highway on the south side of the ski resort, only those people go there. The rest of the people don't use it. So how can it be an arterial? And that's the kind of way I'm looking at it, is those are all collectors because they help collect that community and bring it down to the arterial so that they can get from where they're going to where, you know, where they're trying to get to. But those are the kinds of things I think we can discuss and make those edits on the overall map. And then that helps us with scoring of the weighted average, you know, the weighting of what roads need help. Santos.
And, you know, one could add the opinion that arterial roads should match escape route roads. Escape route roads should all be considered arterial roads, in my opinion.
Yeah. Interesting.
But these, you know, kind of the discussion that we need to have and we need to hear some opinions, you know? Yeah. And get that going.
I think Kurt's right on point is that he mentioned that there are standards within Title VII now that talk about arterials and collectors and things of that nature. And I believe you received a copy of the proposed amendments to Title VII, but that was the whole point, is that it's not just roads, it's encroachments, it's stormwater. There's a lot of other provisions within Title VII that I believe that this committee would be a tremendous asset in trying to flesh out some of these ideas and make sure we captured whatever amendments need to be made together. And this conversation about roads, I think, is part of that conversation. You know, as Kurt pointed out, that there are some things in the code today that say A, B, and C, and maybe we should have an A1 and an A2 and then a B1 and a B2. But I don't believe Title VII has been done a really good assessment update since it was originally drafted, right? And that's not a knock on Title VII. There are a lot of provisions in our code that are that same way. But looking at what this conversation is about road, not just maintenance, but classifications, I'd like to find a way that we continue that conversation to look at all of these other elements that we've heard that need to be amended in Title VII, that we kind of do them all in one big basket to forward to plan commission, to forward to council, so that, they're updated and we're able to utilize them while, whether it's a slow season, it's a mud season, and you can't really build just yet, but that we get it in the ground running while we have some time to get that done.
But I think Mr. Smiley brought up a great point that in conjunction with coming up with a method of evaluating these roads, I mean, right away, we need to examine the classification of the roads and ensure that that's proper.
And that was part of this, that was part of the amendments to the thoroughfare plan, is it hadn't been touched in, I don't know, 15, 16, 18 years. And people just came back and said, I don't think that's gonna work anymore. And some of those roads weren't even within the village that were on our thoroughfare plan. You know, so I think in some instances, it's just that type of conversation of why does it even say it that way? That we start looking at some of these amendments moving forward, because I think it's going to be beneficial overall in the long run for the village that we've updated how you classify a road, that we update the stormwater prevention, all of those elements within Title VII. I just prefer that we try to capture them all consistently. And Kurt's right. If it needs to just be black and white, these are criteria for classifications, for maintenance. Let's do it and just make it easier moving forward for the village. When a new public works director or streets director comes in, it's instead of reinventing the wheel, it's kind of set in motion, which I think overall is better for the long haul for the village.
Yeah, if I may, y'all, I think Julie may have a little bit more to present. So if we end up going a little longer, she could.
I'm
step
pretty
out a
much
little
done.
bit.
I've explained all the funding programs.
If you could real quick, tell us about our water trust board funding that we're in the process of seeking right now,
Okay.
where we're at on that.
Water Trust Board, this is an organization in the state, they handle the, large water, projects, water, funding. It is a process grant. It'll go the whole year till you find out when you get funding. So, the first process, the Water Trust Board met last week. We are on the provisional, approval list. The Water Trust Board approved us for 5.6 million. It'll go to the New Mexico Finance Authority next for their approval. To make sure, we're meeting things like debt capacity and things that we can, this is a loan grant kind of situation. You get like, I think it's like 0.1% on the interest rate for the loan. This funding is for, Monteverde Lake, water line replacement. Phase one is pretty much about 2/3 of the lake, I believe, is phase one, and then phase two will be the other phase towards the south and east. So the 5.6 million looks promising that we'll get. We won't know again until probably September, October, if we secured that funding. So once again, these funding sources take a long time, especially Water Trust Board. It is a process grant. I think I turned in the grant application in January. And then you have a readiness grant. Are all your ducks in a row? You're good to go. Do you have any compliance issues? Is the Office of State Engineer signing off on your project? So right now we're getting recommended from the Water Trust Board, once again, for 5.6 million. That'll be for Monteverde Lake water line replacement. And the next phase would be going to New Mexico Finance Authority, and they're gonna check, make sure we're good to go. And after that, all thumbs up, and we'll probably be going for a contractor in the spring or late winter. Probably late winter.
And the area where those water line upgrades will take place on the map, just to the right of that TV there. And I can show you the split one between phase one and phase two.
Yeah, I think that's something if we're actually going and trying to prioritize things that we need to take into account is, because if we're looking long-term, if that's something that's already gonna be done, hopefully if everything goes as it's supposed to, then it's something we'd wanna take into account. We're kind of working on putting together a proposal for what we think makes sense going forward.
Kurt, if I may, this project got, highlighted, green lighted. We do have a history of breaks in that area. So when I was an asset manager, I would map on Google Earth where the breaks were, where the customer was, what caused the breaks. Was it a rock or something? Something happened. And we had a significant number of breaks and repairs in that area. So the useful life of your 50-year-old pipe is pretty much up, and then you're gonna replace the PVC and everything. But we also wanna, replace the undersized, water lines, and there's pipe in there that they don't make anymore, I believe. It's like some older model plastic pipe that they don't even make it anymore. So when I was compiling data, and Amos was the water supervisor guy, I could tell him, help me help you. It's like, I'm showing you all these breaks that you have in this area. If you want more people or more funding to fix this, this is how you do it, data. It's like, I'm going on my Google Earth, got my map, here's all these breaks and what caused it, and he would take pictures and stuff, and this is what's this. So, and also, we need to add more fire hydrants in that area per, I don't know what the verbiage is, but, you know, we don't have enough.
Hopefully ones that would work.
Yes, and yeah, Mr. Epler, I mean, we've started with the booster stations, increasing the capacity of booster stations and things like that. So you start at the top and go down, so there's no sense in opening up a fire hydrant, no water's coming out. So we start at the top and go down. So now we're ready for, hopefully, fingers crossed, we get this funding to go through. We're ready for that project to begin. It'll probably begin in the spring of 27. So you look at all your data, what do we got going on? And in my opinion, this is just me, my next phase would be Monte Verde subdivision 1 and 2. And I would start with subdivision 2 because they have PID sewer lines there. And that's the discussion of putting people, connecting them to sewer lines because we have an underserved wastewater treatment facility. But that's just me. That's just my opinion. It's 2 cents, take it or leave it. But that's just me. But we are ready to go, hopefully fingers crossed, if the funding comes through, we're ready to go with that project. So now you're looking further, okay, once again, you're looking in the future, 3 to 5, 8 years into the future, because your administration could change and you have different priorities, which is what happened. We've had, your administration changes, they change priorities. They have different things that they want to go for, what they want to do. And it's like, okay, we can do this, but we're gonna change stuff up. And once again, it kind of sets that calendar back a little bit because, okay, this is your priority. This is where we're gonna go forward here. This is ground zero. We're starting forward from here. Engineering, funding, get secure funding, secure contractor, get stuff done. So, yeah, my life is 3 to 5 years in the future. Sorry.
And if it helps, we've addressed over 50 fire hydrants that were flagged.
I was just saying it because I see that.
Yeah. Knowing that there's some hydrants bagged out there because they're missing a flange bolt. We've tried to get all the low hanging fruit addressed. But, did place the fire hydrant on Zia on Friday and they called in locates to do another one tomorrow on Vermejo Circle. So we're working on them as we can get to them. Again, big water system, a few guys.
We'd mentioned, pipe type, that some of this.
What there was there was a lot of class pipe, a lot of SDR 21.
Is it like the Ray Hall?
No, it's just a thinner walled PVC, but it's also more brittle. The biggest issue is most of the fittings are glued together.
Okay, they're not like a Ray Hall weld, but okay.
That's a brand name. What are you referring to? Like, is that a mechanical joint fitting or?
Ray Hall, it's the big roll, black,
We call it HDPE,
right?
high density polyethylene. There is some of that existing, some new construction. Actually, the Country Club Drive San Mateo water line that was put in was bored, and that was 8-inch HDPE.
So another, yeah,
Yeah,
because that's really good because it's flexible. If you have a welder, it's easy to work with.
yeah, one of the challenges could be having to open up 1,000 foot of trench and leave it open while you're welding pipe.
Yeah,
It's absolutely great, it's bulletproof, but the materials that were used before, like Julie said, nobody even makes SDR 21 anymore.
yeah.
And some people thought it was lighter to handle than C900. but it's brittle. We dug up some 2-inch glass pipe there in the middle of winter and get to the leak, and the guy stepped on the pipe and it shattered, and put it together. It was leaking further up the hill. We found that him stepping on it shattered it up in the trench a little ways. So we ended up replacing a big stretch. The biggest problem is those, some of those leaks, the fittings, it just, the glue just has a life to it, it just pops off. Quite frankly, some of the places I'm surprised it lasts as long as it has. You know, pieces of railroad type blocking, I mean, you name it, it's like an archaeological dig.
Are the
Mr.
types
Smiley?
of, are the types of pipe that you can use limited by the state, for water systems? You know, like
They,
in Texas,
Yeah,
it's
they-
C900 is the only one that meets public water system requirements.
HDP does meet the standards in the state of New
Oh.
Mexico, and I can't remember, it's a URL or YRL. Yeah, anything like, well, for instance, when we redid the back basin well, in the process of doing it, we had to pipe some water from a snowmaking well and plumb it into a fire hydrant. We used 2-inch HDPE pipe. We had to do a submittal to the state to approve that the pipe and the fittings were acceptable, lead-free. But HDPE pipe is definitely accepted in New Mexico and encouraged on a lot of projects.
Cool, very cool.
This project itself will have a section of HDPE pipe where we have to bore underneath the upper Senegia for a cross-country line. When it was initially put in, they just dug across the wetlands and put it in. We can't do that anymore, so it'll be boring probably an 8-inch HDPE across that.
Yeah.
Very cool. That helps a lot.
Gentlemen, that's all I have as far as the presentation for the village grant and MDOT grant process. Water processes are, once again, the state has funds funneled from the federal government. There's two, there's the drinking water fund and the clean water fund. These are state revolving loan funds. They don't give you a disbursement like NMDOT where they're just giving you money. They have like a loan grant component. The loan now, like our last one for tank 7 was 0.1%. And I think tank 7 was 1.5.
After fencing and everything, yeah.
Yeah,
we're at
it
1.5.
did come in under budget, but yeah, so it's the same kind of process. So this water trust board funding for the Monte Verde Lake water line replacement, it'll be in that neighborhood.
So if I'm correct here, Julie, one source of funds is the federal gas tax that we all pay every day. And that goes to the feds, and then they turn around and divvy that up to the states. So that's where part of the state gets its money.
Yeah, DOT gets, NMDOT gets a lot of their money from that oil gas money.
But sadly, one thing we have in the state of New Mexico is there are a lot of communities with bad antiquated water lines. There is a lot of communities with bad busted up roads. So like Julie said, they might allocate 300 million. There might be 4 billion in request. And but that's where she comes in. She does a great job advocating for us, attending the NERPO meetings, and Julie's very knowledgeable and very well connected with people in the industry. And I think my lucky stars that she's on our team.
So when you're making these grant applications, does the state require a level of improvement, or is there something less than a curb and gutter street that could be approved through the process? Or do they want to see that full urbanized street section in the grants?
The streets, if you weren't gonna go through a curb and gutter kind of project, if you go through a state NMDOT project, they're required to be engineered. If you did not, you would use co-op funds. Like if you just wanted to use material like base course or type 2 gravel just to just to make a road improvement. If you were going to go after NMDOT funds, then it would be an engineered project and it would be curb gutter, because they want to make sure your drainage is improved. And it would be usually an asphalted project.
So you think that they would not accept a asphalt road with drainage ditches on both sides?
They have a certain specification that they like. It's gonna be engineered for drainage with curb. At least curb, some kind of curb drainage.
Yeah, okay.
And usually ask, yeah.
Well, because and just looking at, without curb and gutter, the money goes for a lot more linear feet. And because the curb and gutter is a significant expense, and just trying to understand in the overall process is, how do we make the money go for as many miles as we can get? And it goes back to, if the people giving us the money want curb and gutter and will only approve curb and gutter streets, then obviously we submit curb and gutter streets.
It's whatever, yeah, your project specifications. If we're doing, like North Angel Fire Road, Bill Burgess, it is gonna be required curb and gutter. We will have ADA compliant sidewalks. Because it's gonna be a specification that they're gonna require for that type of road.
Mr. Smiley,
Yeah, that's clearly an
I'm sorry,
arterial,
sir.
and I agree 100%.
Mr. Smiley, I'll be meeting with our engineer Tappan Mahoney on Wednesday to do a walkthrough on Country Club Drive. And we had a quick discussion about that at one point. I'll see if he can elaborate for me on if there's a possibility of just doing a pavement on a road without incorporating everything else, and see what he has to say.
Okay. Because, there are many stretches of road in Angel Fire that you can get good drainage by ditches without having, which is, obviously it's more of a typical looking county section than an urban section with curb and gutter. But you can get a long lasting pavement without curb and gutter, and therefore, do an extra half mile. So I'm just trying to think about if there's anything that we can do to help stretch the dollars out further along the way. And that goes into some of the things that I had asked to talk about today was, is there anything less? And then is there any, well, that's really the basic discussion. Is there anything less that could be done than an asphalt road with curb and gutters? So I appreciate your input. Thank you.
Yeah, you're
I'd
going
love
for
to hear what he says.
Yeah, NMDOT funding is pretty much, because you're going for high dollar stuff, and they're not, the county does chip seal and stuff, so it depends on the specifications that you're looking for your final project. Like I said, you can use co-op funds for road material. If you just wanted to recover a road, a certain stretch of road, you could use it for that. But the TPF projects are usually asphalt projects.
So the prioritization of roads has to take into account the methods for funding it. That's very good, right? That's a helpful component.
That's most achievable. And stretching dollars is something we're gonna get pretty accustomed to the next couple of years.
Yeah.
Okay. And would any of y'all have any further questions for Ms. Cohan? Thank you very much, Julie.
Thank you, Julie.
Excellent.
Yes, sir.
So that could move us to B, which would be road treatment. Stay up there. Or,
Get one of them bar stools so I can just.
Just pull up a chair.
yeah,
Little bit of a knee issue. I'm sure y'all have dealt with that.
yeah. My hip would like a taller chair too.
Well, in some correspondence with Mr. Smiley, again, I kind of jumped the gun when I said that chip seal will never happen as long as I'm in this job.
Okay, I changed my mind on that, but I don't wanna stop the discussion with just my opinion. Okay, so, you know, I think in order for this committee to be successful, is we can't just go off everything that I say, or, you know, if you have varying opinions from mine as a group, and you wanna present those to council, it's the purpose of the committee. You know, it reaches, some of this stuff, we're not gonna have any progress unless we have some disagreement. Okay, so with that, I thought it'd be a good, you know, since I overstepped my bounds before, I wanna get it back on the agenda. Let's discuss the chip seal a little deeper. I'd like to hear y'all's opinions on it, and yeah, I don't wanna leave any stone unturned. And again, I'm not up here to, you know, I'm not the only decision maker here.
Well, it goes back to, in that conversation, it goes back to what we just heard about the funding. Obviously, we are not gonna be looking at any chip sealing for a road that we're gonna go for state funding. So the only source of anything less is with village money. Because all the other state funding monies are gonna require us to do the full-fledged street. So we have a limited revenue available and a limited source of funding. But to me, that's what you know, it goes back to that categorization of streets and the quality of the street that's existing, the safety issues that are related to it, the condition of the water lines, all these things have to play into the fact. And then whether we would accept on some of those streets that come to the higher priority, whether we would do something less than an asphalt curb and gutter street with village money.
Now, it really appears to me that it would be very beneficial in this process for you all to have a clear and concise picture of how much money we have to spend. Am I right in thinking that?
Very.
So Councilman Howe, I would, you know, ask for your guidance on this, and maybe Julie, you can give the, is it kosher to involve this committee within the budgeting process as we get our first runs, second runs
Yes.
made available? Because that's when y'all can give input.
Yeah.
When you see what is being proposed for dollars for roads and infrastructure.
Right.
So I think, and it might even be possible to, if requested by y'all, to see this year's proposed budgets with actuals from, say, last 3 years. See how the trend has been with the spending, 3, 4, 5. It's a real simple thing that can be brought up. So you could see this year's proposed budget in relation to past year's budgets.
That would help.
And I think if you can go back 5 years and see what was budgeted then and the results that was had from it,
But
compare it to,
a couple things. Back where you said you don't want to feel like you're totally in charge and doing things your way. We are all on this committee right now being educated. And you're the one that has the knowledge and everything that we need to know to make it a lot easier for us to make decisions and create that discussion.
and I appreciate that, and I really do, but also I'm gonna be straightforward with you. The first 2 meetings we had was y'all questioning my knowledge.
Exactly.
Okay,
And
so now that we've got over the bowing up and
right.
questioning process, let's move forward.
Even when we come down to the tours,
Mhm.
where we can go out with you and sit with you and observe and see some of the situations right there, it's gonna help us a lot.
Sure.
Because a lot of us come from different places. It's like I'm Pagosa, Kiewit, Albuquerque, DOT, nothing that really pertains to directly here.
Sure.
And we've lived here, I've lived here for over 30 years.
Mhm.
So I know the roads and I know what's here, but you know what they're made of. You know, and you know where they're gonna fall apart, you know where the main traffic is. There's just a lot of things that we need to educate ourselves to really make that conversation with you and the discussion to where it's not just a waste of time.
Well, exactly, but I don't want to shut off discussion just with my opinion. You
No,
know, maybe there's places where people have seen chip seal successful. It hasn't been here. I'm sure we could go into a long discussion as to why. But I will say that it's something that did okay for a little while. And then for a great number of years, took up most of the bandwidth of the roads maintenance staff, just taking care of those few chip sealed roads. And, you know, I'll say when I took this job with some preconceived notions of what could be done, how easy this would be, how hard that would be, this, that, and the other. But until I got on the job and saw the bandwidth we had from equipment to employees to dollars, speed of government, that was the biggest shock for me. I'm ready to, snow's gone, let's start laying base course. Oh, we gotta do an RFP. When am I gonna give base course? 2 months from now. So,
exactly.
okay. But yeah, let's, item on the agenda, the different road coverings. So,
That it on treatment,
Mr. Smiley, you good with that?
Scott?
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay, let's go down here to options on 31 side roads. I know this is something that Scott had brought up about running one side of a road. But with your email that we got, I read that and had some questions about that process and how it would be feasible to use here. So maybe Scott, if you could maybe talk a little
Well-
bit about that.
yeah, there's two things that, I grew up in, as for a road or one lane pavement, and this would really only work in a chip seal area. I grew up in Illinois where the preponderance of the rural roads were one lane paved. And everybody drives on the one lane paved until they're coming to somebody, and then they go over to the gravel if it's on the right, or they go to the gravel if it's on their left, and they pass each other, and it goes back for low traffic areas. So obviously, this is not something that would be any collector or arterial. It'd only be for those local residential streets. But what I'm also now, after I thought about this some more, I'm looking at this as saying, we have so far to go right now in getting arterials and collectors paved that it's almost not even worth looking at what we would do in residential streets, because we would much rather spend the money on those collectors and arterials for the foreseeable future until we get to the point where we can start looking at paving residential streets. So the idea is an interesting one, because I think that you could get a lot of benefit maybe one side or one down the middle, and both people have to leave and go out to the left and the right. But there's such little traffic in many times of the year that everybody that using that street would benefit from just one lane paved. But I think it's a future concept that we don't need to spend a whole lot of time on right now, because we have so much work ahead of us to get the collectors paved in this community that there will never be enough money to start looking at residential streets for a long time coming.
And with the roads that we have here, I think it would probably be not too hard to really detour around projects versus try to split a project on a road. So I don't know.
You know,
That would be.
it's a topic that Councilman Curry has asked about partial pavements of road, hot spots on the road, certain turns, so forth and so on. It's logical, I guess, but my concerns are based from experience in areas where we've had partial chip seal or partial pavement. Most of them not by choice. Most of them that, the chip seal came apart. The example I'd like to use before we milled all the chip seal up was Valle Grande North. There was one lane that was milled up and the other one was left with chip seal on it.
And, yeah, the chip seal kept the dust down, but it created a bit of a maintenance challenge with the transition from base course to the chip seal. Base
Yep.
course would get eroded down and the chip seal stays up. So I was constantly trying to keep that interface blended together. And my reservations about, say, El Camino Real, picking certain curves and paving them, so forth and so on. You know, we gotta keep in mind, we don't do snow removal on our paved roads with motor graders. Okay, and, you know, we do on the gravel roads. And to be in that situation where a motor grader's gotta pick up and get past the spot, we dealt with that on San Mateo for a few years. Because the village hadn't accepted that road yet, so the motor grader pick up his moldboard, drive past it. But I mean, it's worthy of discussion, but those would be my concerns, how much time is it gonna require to maintain that interface between that pavement or chip seal and the natural gravel? Now, you had to do a quick jump back. Or you mentioned getting all of our collector and our arterial roads paved. Is that the goal? Is that what we ultimately want to do, is have all the arterial and collective roads?
I would say no, for the simple reason of speed, safety, because asphalt slick when it's wet, roads and snow on it.
Yeah.
Slicker than on a gravel road where you get traction. So my past experiences with asphalt, I'm not a big fan of asphalt in winter months. And asphalt seems to fall apart.
Well, that would be a concern in long-term maintenance, what our bandwidth is for maintaining asphalt. Once it does start to deteriorate, it's very labor intensive. And will we have the staff to do that? Now, you know, I've heard different opinions and don't really disagree with any of them, where some of the community don't want paved roads everywhere. They want it just in the core village area where there's the biggest conglomeration of people at peak times. And then there's some people want their road paved because the dust gets bad. Again, always got to revert back to the safety question. When I first took the job, there was a lot of input, and from one of the committee members that we had, his wife happened to be showing a lot of real estate up El Camino Real, so they really pushed hard to get El Camino Real paved. And that first winter I was on the job, we actually had snow. Every single accident that I was called to respond to with cinders was on that road. I can't imagine how bad it would be if it was paved.
The guardrail system would have to be phenomenal.
Because everybody does drive the speed limit here. We should know that, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, again, plain and simple, we got a lot of catching up to do. You know, and I hope we can get to the point where we can at least give a committee report at the next council meeting.
Yeah.
You know, I hate to say, because we have, I think the few meetings that we've had up to this point is probably the most productive visiting and talking that has taken place since I took this job with a committee. But we really don't have a whole lot to report to council yet. But I hope that bringing Ms. Colhan in to give an understanding of the timing. I would really hope that sooner than later, we can come up with a way to show you guys what we're seeking for budget dollars this year. So, you know, Mr. Smiley has had a lot of questions about how much of this work comes out of budget, how much is from grants. Well, we've talked about the grant process. The budget varies, and it's varying this year. To put it nicely.
It's almost good if we can find some projects here in the beginning to where we could use GO bond money. Where we could
There's another discussion that needs to be had.
Knock out some projects quicker and be able to show council that, yes, we are making our attempt and we're trying to take care of this before we throw a big one at them.
So we also need to show you as
We
well.
got, have the big one because it might be 3 years before we could ever see a penny for it.
We also need to show you what's left in 2025 Go Bond. And initiate the discussion, which I've asked for with my higher ups to have the discussion on if we are going to seek a 2027 Go Bond and for how much. Because there's not much left in Go Bond.
Okay.
So again, Chuck, let's see if we can get these folks some numbers so they can see a picture of what we're dealing with in Public Works. Just to double check and make sure you understand that in joint utility, which is the water and wastewater, it is its own enterprise.
Right.
So it's in a sense its own business. Streets department and maintenance, the whole maintenance crew we have that goes around, they're funded out of the general fund. Okay, so those are the ones most directly impacted by gross receipts tax. Solid waste is another enterprise fund. They make the money that they operate on. Where streets department and maintenance department are gonna be competing, competing is a bad word, with other departments that are funded by the general fund. Fire departments, police departments, wildland, no, wildland's an enterprise, I'm sorry. Administration, accounting, finance, things like that.
Water and sewer, you've got residents paying into that.
Yes, sir.
So that's gonna give you a base money there.
And with solid waste, everybody sees that $27 a month bill.
Yeah.
For solid waste, that covers that. They, the water department did receive some extra, money over the last couple of years for some of the upgrades that needed to be done. So they said we're essentially spent more than we made. But we also, there was a pretty good amount of money in Go Bond. A lot of the Go Bond dollars, prior to me starting this job, in fact, most of them for water and wastewater, almost all the Go Bond dollars went for design and plan and design, engineering services.
Just to set up to
Yeah.
apply for.
But we were able to use Go Bond dollars for the booster pump upgrades, the replacement of the back basin well, both big ticket items.
Yeah.
Okay. Fortunately, we had the money to do it with. Okay. But we've also, we did get a capital appropriations back. So the design for Monte Verde Lake subdivision was gonna be 700,000. We got 100,000 capital appropriation. So it's around 600,000 for plan and design on that. So long story short, Go Bond dollars are real low right now. So the discussion needs to be had.
Okay. So one other thing I had was, we've discussed a lot in the last few meetings about priority. And today we pretty much spent most of our day on roads. Is our water, sewer and solid waste in a position to where they can be put in like second place
As far
on
as
the priority?
water is definitely needs to be put in, I ain't gonna lie, we've got some needs in water that I think are greater than
Is
some of
it
the
great
needs on
or
roads.
boosters or PV,
Tanks,
PRV valves,
tanks the biggest issue.
the PRVs?
PRVs are being addressed. And, but yeah, that's definitely, and it's in the, now PRV work, it's repair and maintenance, so it has to be done out of budget. And that's, we're doing some of it in the current budget and there's more budgeted for next year. So where we were initially looking at, having a contractor come in and redo all these PRVs. He came up in 2 emergency situations and rebuilt PRVs with us. One of our staff members, Nathan Gopium, wanted to champion the project of learning how to redo these PRVs. And he's worked with Bill Kerb, who's an
How much
expert.
less would that be than replacing it at the 90,000 for a PRV?
That's repairing a, if you're installing a new PRV, then you're looking at 90,000 now.
Right.
I should back up and say there was one on North Angel Fire Road that we'd like to install so we could serve more area off the 1,000,000-gallon tank and get some area off of Back Basin. But the 38 PRVs that we have throughout the village, some of them are just need basic maintenance. And we got one of our guys trained up and he's already started some of the work.
So that could be internal.
Yeah. And like when Mr. Kerb came out and did a rebuild of a PRV for, the first one he did, for example, was $19,800 to do it. We get the parts for about $3,000. So fortunate to have old Nathan with us. He's really doing well with that.
And sewer and solid waste? They're pretty happy?
Solid waste is pretty happy. Sewer, biggest thing that will benefit sewer is expansion.
Yeah.
You know, we're utilized at more than 25% of its capacity.
25?
Yeah, we did clean and assess all the sewer lines that come from the ski area down to, towards the Elk median.
That mess that happened up there last year?
Yeah. And
We're
the year
back up
before.
in the.
Yeah.
Okay.
When one short stretch of 8-inch pipe, they took almost 15 yards of material out of it. So from old breaks and stuff, it's all cleared out now. Would like to do a cleaning and an assessment on the sewer line from Olympic Park to North Angel Fire Road. We did have one backup on it last year. It's big. It's a 15-inch main. But some of the sewer lines hadn't had assessments done on them in quite a few years.
So there would be like one lift station from Olympic Park to the plant?
No,
No?
we're talking a section of just trunk line,
Oh.
gravity sewer line. Cause it goes gravity all the way to the headworks by solid waste and then is pumped up to.
And the lift station's there, okay.
I don't know if I'm quite understanding you as far as 1 and 2. I think, you know, there should be a top 5 list compiled for roads, a top 5 list for water. Solid waste doesn't really have major needs right now. Other than maybe eventually some equipment. We are going to actually already have started, we're gonna be moving the fence on, at the dumpster site on Halo Pines to increase some capacity there. Moving that back fence back to the old Houston Lumber Long Barn
Right.
and then doing a niche inside of the joint utility yard for recycling trailers and gonna add another entrance and think we can get 20-25% increase in the number of dumpsters we put there.
Okay, I just wanted to kind of understand, you know, if we focus all of our energy on roads, then sooner or later, we're gonna get hit with these others.
Sure.
And when it comes to the go bond or the monies,
Yeah.
that all still has to be divided out.
The two biggest short-term needs I see for water department are one, upsizing some tanks. We just did tank 7, took it from a 100,000-gallon tank to a 300,000-gallon tank. Played a big part in stabilizing that side of the hill. Tank 8 is a small tank that serves a lot of houses. And this could be number 1 priority as well, but I think that they're both number 1s. We need to upsize the tanks. We need to acquire some water rights.
Any other questions on C? Chris? Scott, you okay with everything on C? Okay.
Say it
We
again.
need to talk. Go ahead, Scott.
He was
No, say
asking
it again.
Scott if you, he was asking if you, were you okay with everything on agenda item C?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Thank you all.
You bet.
Thank you. Okay, so the next one we have to really kind of come up with is a date for our next meeting. I think Dan, I know he went to Thailand, but he should be back next week. So, suppose we could just put a tentative date for now. I'm gonna be gone next Sunday for one full week. So I'll be gone through the 10th to the 20th. Yeah, I leave on the 10th and I'll be back on the 17th.
If it matters, I'm gone the 15th through 30th.
15th through 30th,
Yeah, 15 through 30 of May.
because where I'm going, I can Zoom.
I might be able to, because there'll be Wi-Fi on the ship.
Because I'll be in Lafayette, so I'll have access to the internet everywhere I'm at.
So what about that June 8th? Is that a possibility?
June 8th?
Yeah.
As far as the village goes, just the time is not good. If you guys can do, maybe 10 AM or 3, that'll work.
Because I know we discussed once that it would be nice if we could do these meetings on Monday to kind of play into Kurt's schedule,
Mhm.
because
It is good, the time's not.
Yeah, the date is good, the time is not.
Huh?
1 o'clock on that, on Monday, the 8th is taken up
does that sound
with
good to
the direct
everybody?
reports meeting.
So do you want to do 10 o'clock or 3 o'clock?
I would rather do the 3 myself.
Okay.
Okay.
Is that still good for you, Craig?
Open.
Yeah,
Scott, does that work for you?
And you said June 8th? That'd be great.
It's at 3.
Yeah, June 8th's open.
and I've gotta say, guys, June 9th is a scheduled regular council meeting. We may not be able to, obviously wouldn't be able to get anything on the agenda. But maybe we can set a goal where Councilman Howell can give a committee update on the 9th.
Okay,
And I think there's plenty of discussion to be had there. An update can be given on
Yeah.
the discussions that we've had.
what we went over today and
Yeah,
kind of where directions we're looking. But I think it really helped today. Julie really helped.
yeah.
Because now it really helped me because now I understand the differences.
It's one of the more frustrating parts, seeing something that so clearly needs to be addressed
Right?
and knowing if all goes well, it'll take us 3 years to address it.
Okay,
And this is exactly what is, one of the paving projects that we did was on 5 Springs Road from that transverse drop inlet up to the top of Jackson Hole.
right.
And Jackson Hole itself. And we're actively seeking funding for that. But those 2 pieces of road would not survive 3 more years. So
No.
we had some more money in the budget. And we did it,
Seems like at the end of that transition from asphalt to dirt road, it goes away so bad, so quick.
like that.
Yeah, and then that loop down there, is that where the drainage would be, where it's right there by the chili? Where it makes the sharp bend,
Yeah.
that's that drainage that we could rebuild versus replace?
No, it's below that transverse drop inlet down to the intersection with Vale.
Okay,
Along the side of the road, you can see all these grates that the gutters run into.
okay,
And out from each one of those grates, there's a manhole cover. If you look close on them, they say storm drain.
they're
So
starting,
there's a pipe that goes right down the center and all of those catchments send the water into the storm drain and then it turns onto Vale Avenue and
okay,
dumps into a big collector underneath the blue lot. All half the size of this room.
okay, so we're set on the 8th at 3, June.
And a question on the time, because you guys had scheduled this meeting from 1 to 2, and we're an hour and 40 minutes in. Do you want me to schedule it for an hour and a half? Or an
Let's
hour
do.
45?
I think we should, just because there's still a lot of things that we can,
So about 3 to 4:30?
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, that work for, it
And
works for
also,
me.
do you want me to resend you the charter? So you guys
If
can
you
work on
would,
that? Yes,
Just so we
absolutely.
can maybe cover that, and then we would get that charter maybe high on our list for discussion on that meeting. Where we can get the charter thing taken care of. So basically, we just gotta kind of study the charters that are there. See which one would be the easiest for us to edit to get it to our needs,
Yeah, you can sample it.
pretty much that
Mhm.
way. Okay, so that might be something that we can just play with.
Exactly.
During this time, we can take one of those charters and maybe go in there and maybe play with it a little bit, and when we get here, that might speed things up.
Perfect.
Hey. Are we good with everything?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we can go ahead and adjourn?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Thanks.